Hello, and the sneak peek today of what's coming up on the show is about the recession. Canada is in a recession. Canadians with disabilities have been in a recession for many years, and we've been in recession for decades, actually. So we're going to slip into a depression for Canadians with disabilities across Canada. But technically, one of those technicalities is Canada says we're going to be going into a recession because of the upcoming tariffs on February 1st that are coming in at 25% minimum. And the president of the United States said, yeah, they might go up, they may not. I guess we'll find out the repercussions as how will Canadians with disabilities survive? Will they survive a recession? We'll dive right into that in just a few moments. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frayne. I'm the host, and today we're going to be talking about the recession of February 1st. That is when everything really starts to crumble. Canadians with disabilities across Canada, they're suffering in legislative poverty, well below the poverty level of what they should be at for at least a basic means. But with a person with a disability across Canada who live in legislative poverty, they have ongoing expenses that are well above that basic level of financial means. So what happens when the tariff actually come in? Well, will we survive? My answer, my short answer is it's going to be very difficult. My long answer would be that governments have a legal responsibility of taking care of their citizens. Being proactive would be the number one goal. And to achieve that goal is to actually increase rates to a livable amount going forward and tying it to the cost of living adjustments, COLA. I talk about that a lot on the show, COLA, right? Who doesn't want COLA, right? I mean, if you go to a dentist, they say, no, don't drink COLA because COLA is not good for you, right? But cost of living is good for you, right? You ask any politician if their rates are actually tied to inflation. Oh, they're going to say, well, it's automatic. So why is the disability income supports across Canada not tied to at least the bare minimum and then increase the rates each year on top of that? Because cost of living is going up. And I've been saying this for decades. We used to have a lot of discussions with my mom, God rest her soul, because she predicted this happening many years ago. She said, it's not if, Brent, it's when it'll happen. And she said, Canada has to be prepared for it. And I said, well, how does this work? Well, they take care of their citizens before it actually happens. So she was a very proactive person. And so she taught me to be very proactive in life and come to the solutions of the problems that face people in their lives. And that's why we do the show. I bring people on, talk about lived experience, talk about their stories. And here we go again. She predicted this to happen. She lived through the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. And when I mentioned at the sneak peek at the beginning of the podcast here, I said that Canadians with disabilities are living in a depression, right? Because these rates are, I mean, way below market rent. You can't even find market rent anywhere in Canada, not even for the shelter amount. And that amount needs to just get abolished. They just take that out of the equation. It has nothing to do with anything. It's a nothing burger.
Here in BC, we get around $1,500 a month all in for everything.
Yeah, $1,450.
Yeah, and that's hard. Like, it's hard to thrive at that amount, right? You can't really thrive at that amount.
I mean, if you opt out of a bus pass, you get 52.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's.
But talking about rates,
Yeah.
You're talking about PWD rates, but let's talk about Bank of Canada rates.
Oh, yes.
Because we have the Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem. He was on the news a lot during the peak of COVID, and he's back in the news again because of all this threat of tariffs from the states. And so
Breaking news.
The Bank of Canada just cut their interest rate to 3%. It's down to 3%, and it's the sixth straight cut, and they're doing it to keep inflation in check. And as of right now, inflation is
breaking news here, Neil.
Okay.
Some breaking news here.
Okay.
Trump set to impose tariff on Mexico, Canada, starting on March 1st. Sources tell Reuters.
Oh, so March 1st.
So the breaking news is here. Just came in.
Okay. Well, there you go. So he's giving a little bit more wiggle room then.
Donald Trump, President of the United States. So we'll find out. So it gives Canada just over 1 month and 1 day, 1 month, 1 day to get our rates increased to no less than poverty level.
Yeah.
That's the break. Sorry about that.
But we will. We have a couple clips we're gonna play a little bit later. But I just wanted to talk about again the rates. So we have the interest rate has been cut to 3%, and that's to get inflation under control. And so the governor Tiff Macklem has said that it's down to around. The inflation is down to around 2%, which is kind of what they wanted. But he said, of course, with the threat of tariffs, it's going to go right back up again. Yep. And in comparison, the inflation went as high as 8.1% back in June of 2022. That's really high, right?
It's very, very high.
Yeah, but I wanted to make the point too, and I don't know about our listeners or about you, Brent, but when they say that the inflation's down to 2%, it sure doesn't feel like that in the stores, does it?
It doesn't, and that's just a national average level. And what that inflation doesn't really pick up on is the cost of goods and services like food at the grocery store, your rent, market rents. That's not tied into the market basket measure. It's the goods and services. It's only a tiny little bit, a fraction in that formula. And so it's a misconception where I've had discussions with people in the grocery stores too. And they're like, well, geez, the cost of produce is like, and vegetables, and whatever else you need to buy on the shelves. Everything's skyrocket right through the roof, right?
Things have literally doubled in cases, right?
Yeah. A whole 12 little carton of eggs. Just for instance, $4.99, $5.99, depending on the brand that you want. A jug of milk over $6. Really, just your basic staples. They've really gone up over double the price than what they used to be, and in some cases triple.
Yeah.
And but the rates have not gone up. And I'm glad you mentioned about the inflation rates, because that was in 2022. In 2023 in BC, the government increased the rates by 125, only to some PWD, not all. But nothing in 2024. No increase. Meanwhile, the cost of living is kept still soaring. Nothing ever goes down in price.
Yeah.
I want everyone to understand that when the costs go up, they never come back down. Right? So they're always going to be at that profit margin for the retailers, because their buying power, when they need to buy the source from their distributors, they're trying to pass on, in some stores, they're trying to pass on the cost savings to the consumers the best way they can. But if they're not getting a good deal from the other end, from the distributors, assembly line, it comes down the line, they're going to pass it on to the consumers, right? And so when they're sourcing it from the United States and they're coming up to Canada and you're getting taxed on those goods, who's going to pay for it at the end of the day?
Yeah,
so now
exactly.
When those tariffs go up, it's not just going to hurt the United States. it's going to hurt them immensely with
Yeah.
those tariffs.
Yeah.
So I mean, Donald Trump. I mean, it's not just going to hurt the citizens of the United States. It's going to hurt Canada too. It's going to
Yeah.
hurt both countries, and
Yeah.
it's also going to hurt Mexico. I mean, it's crazy that there's no need for tariffs, right? No need for tariffs at all. I mean, we're partners with Canada, with United States, Mexico. They should all be interlined. I mean, like, folks, like, let's just get along. I mean,
Yeah.
we're neighbors. Like, I mean, can't we not just get along and get rid of these tariffs?
Well, our Canadian dollar, our loonie right now is sitting at about 69 cents.
Yeah, I
Uh,
heard it last night. It dipped down to 68.90. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
At the start of the year, it went all the way down to 61 cents. And with tariffs coming, I mean, it could go like below 60 maybe, right? So I mean,
Really bad.
it's scary, right?
It's
And
extremely bad for our economy.
and so you have with the tariffs, you're going to have less demand for Canadian goods, and that means lower production. It means layoffs.
Yep.
It means there's going to be a decline in investment, and a significantly lower GDP, gross domestic product. You know,
When your neighbors start losing their job, and then the other person loses their job, then there's a huge problem, because if a lot of people start losing their incomes, how do they support their local grocers, their local shops, barber shops, grocery stores, convenience stores, you name it, clothing stores? Who's going to be working in all those places when they all lose their jobs? When the employer says, "Well, my operating costs are way too high," these all start shuttering their doors. I mean, you look in East Vancouver, for instance, Neil, we'll kind of pivot over there.
Sure.
What's happening in East Vancouver and British Columbia right now? I mean, I'll pass the mic over to you, and you can let our listeners know what is happening in East Vancouver.
Yeah, it's really
a big store.
Yeah, there's the president of London Drugs. There's a London Drug store in the Downtown Eastside. There's you've heard the term anchor stores. They use the term anchor stores, and that's kind of the big magnet to attract a whole bunch of economic activity, in the area. And so in 2009, we had a old Woodward's building that was in the Downtown East Side for, I don't know how many decades was it, a long time.
I loved Woodward's.
It was great.
Stores.
I mean, that was the magnet, right? That was the anchor store for decades and decades and decades. But then they demolished it, and they revitalized, or they tried to revitalize the area. So London Drugs went in. It was 2009. They went in as an anchor store to kind of revitalize the area, because they saw the promise of, they were told, well, we're going to have new development there. There's going to be new condos, and they're going to be a mix of new condos and what is it, the affordable housing, a mix of both of those, and it just the density hasn't happened as expected there, and you still have a whole bunch of problems with drugs and crime in the area, and
gangs too.
Oh, it's terrible. So here you have London Drugs went in 2009, and so they've been there for 15 years, and in 15 years, they've lost $10 million.
Whoa.
I mean, and you can say, well, they're a big outfit. They can afford a loss like that. But I mean, like, if you were the president of a company, would you just sit around and just accept a $10 million loss in 15 years? I mean, you should be making a profit all the time.
Yeah, they're making no money apparently. None.
Yeah.
They're in the red constantly.
Because you know what, they're staffing a bunch of security guards. They've got all these security cameras.
Windows get smashed in, and people in case with knives, and
even with all that, you have all these people that are like smashing windows and stealing, and the staff that work down there are scared for their lives. Shoppers that go down there don't want to go down there because they don't.
I wouldn't go down there.
No. And so anyway, there's the president of London Drugs, Clint Mahlman is his name. Clint Mahlman. He's got this great quote, and he says, "There's no worse feeling in the world in management when you can't protect your own employees." I mean, that's a mic drop right there. There's no worse feeling in the world in management when you can't protect your own employees. And then we have to say as well, it's not just London Drugs. There's also JJ Bean, which is a coffee shop there, right? JJ Bean, and they closed up shop in Woodward's, same area, exactly the same area as London Drugs. They closed up shop in the summer of 2023 because of high crime as well, and they weren't turning a profit as well. And we have to say that most of the crime that happens is just a small handful of people. There's one guy that they I was watching the news the other day, and they profiled this whole thing. There's basically one guy, and they showed a bit of his rap sheet, and it like just one page, and it was like at least like 50 or 60 entries for this one guy.
Wow.
On just the London Drugs stuff that he's done, assault with a weapon, death threats, and this one guy has got 25 aliases, and he keeps doing the same thing. And it's the whole thing of the province now. They do all this catch and release crap.
Yeah, and
and guess who's responsible for that? Mr. David Eby. He was the Attorney General for like I've said, like 5 or 6 years. He was the architect of all this catch and release crap. So I mean, here's this one guy doing all this havoc on one store. And the employees don't feel safe. The customers don't want to go down there and shop. And London Drugs has lost $10 million in 15 years. And David Eby wants to say, well, it's not my problem. That's the whole thing that bugs me about this whole tariff thing is both David Eby and Doug Ford, the Ontario Premier, have both kind of adopted the same thing of like, let's puff out our chest and rage at the sky at President Trump, and they're not acknowledging the problem of fentanyl and the border issues. It's like, well, it's not my problem that I legalized drugs. It's not my problem that I did that. It's not my problem that minors have access to fentanyl now. I can talk about the amount of deaths. We can talk about the amount of deaths just in BC alone. There is roughly 2,500 deaths per year in BC alone when it comes to fentanyl and other drug issues, and that is higher than if you combine. And this is for persons aged 10 to 59.
Oh my gosh!
Can you imagine age 10? I mean, that makes me sick. Age 10 to 59 are the cause of death is unregulated drug toxicity. So that's 2,500 deaths in BC per year. And then I've got a stat here. It says there's been 21,000 deaths in BC since it's been declared a public health emergency in April of 2016. And if you use the same timeline, I researched all this. I went back and I researched all this. So there's been 21,000 deaths in BC alone since April 2016, and there's been 50,000 deaths in all of Canada in the same period. So
Holy.
so 42% of all deaths are coming from BC, British Columbia.
Mm.
And so for David Eby to puff out his chest and say, sorry, it's not our problem. Like the fentanyl issue is not our problem. You know,
Mm.
uh, you know, uh,
9 years later, and still everything's out of control.
it just pisses me off.
And here's the other problem is the ports of the port of Vancouver and the port of Delta there they have the other port. So all these the drug paraphernalia and everything else, weapons, everything comes through these containers, and there's only 1% of all those containers that come in are checked. 99% of them are not checked because it's been underfunded by the federal government for decades. I remember hearing this on the news way back in the late 1990s when they were disbanded. They were disbanded of all so basically the security that or RCMP or whoever needs to take care of it. It was disbanded, and since then nothing. And what's coming through there? All the drugs are all coming through there. They're all coming through from China. They're all coming through, and then what it does, it gets sent down from there down into the U.S. I guess it gets manufactured, and then they send it back and forth, back and forth. There's a huge problem.
Yeah,
and
I'm not saying
US too.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's an easy solution.
No.
I'm not saying that at all. But when you have a Prime Minister of Canada, and you have premiers like David Eby and you have premiers like Doug Ford that are just puffing out their chest and saying, well, it's not my problem that I legalized drug possession. It's not my problem that minors 10 years old are dying of drug overdoses. It's not my problem that London Drugs wants to close their store because they've lost $10 million in 15 years. That's not my problem. I mean, it just pisses me off. You have David Eby's like puffing on his chest saying we have to retaliate. Fix your own backyard, David Eby. Fix your own backyard. Don't go pointing fingers at Trump. Fix your own problems.
Jurisdictional, yes.
He's created so much problems, and he's like, well, there's no flies on me. There's no flies on me. Well, excuse me. I think you have that wrong, David Eby.
And like when we talk about like jurisdictional, like in your own backyard, jurisdictional stuff, and that comes down to again about surviving through like the recession, like jurisdictional where province needs to take care of their own residents of persons with disabilities in their province. It's policies. It's all policy driven in the regulations and how it's written, and then it becomes a policy. Well, this is our policy. Well, change the regulations. So where I'm going with this, folks, is that every province has their own policies for each province. Some don't have the PWD designation in their province. That needs to change. But that's another story in itself. But the ones who do have that, you need to be bringing those rates up to a livable income. No less now, livable income. That's not even acceptable to have it even less than that. The buying power, what you used to be able to buy way back in like 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, it's eroded away. I mean, I can look back into like the 1990s of what you could buy. You give me $100, what I could buy for $100. My gosh, you could get a lot of groceries back then. Now, you can get next to nil, next to nothing. So when I'm saying about the recession, they're saying there's going to be a recovery plan or some kind of plan to help working age Canadians.
Yeah,
working age. What about people on fixed incomes, on seniors, persons with disabilities, anybody on fixed incomes, or people on low income? They're working at a minimum wage job. I mean, the buying power. I mean, they're not even going to be able to even afford to even work where they're working because the cost of things are going to be going up. Their employers are going to lay them off. What are they going to have? They're going to hurt themselves on the job or something, or whatever. and then they become disabled. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Now we got a problem here, folks, because again, the province is now going to rely on the federal government to deliver a package program to help Canadians. Again, gee, this sounds like deja vu.
It'll be like a mini CERB, maybe like
A
another
mini
mini CERB.
CERB 2.0.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
know what happened back in 5 years ago when CERB was announced. It got out there right away to help people. Yep, help is on the way, folks. Yeah, we're going to get this out.
Yeah.
I remember all those announcements every morning, breaking news. You look at the cottage there, and the camera's pointing right at the cottage, and you're waiting for Justin Trudeau to come out. He comes down the stairs. Hello, good morning, folks. Hello. Yeah. And yeah, I'm here to help Canadians. We're going to get through this. Yeah. And guess who was the last people on the list?
I'm here to help Canadians as long as you're not disabled.
If you're disabled, yeah, you don't matter. You don't matter. But the last segment of the population, which, just to let everyone know, that about 27% of the population are disabled. And as we get older, we get more disabilities. So that number is good. That percentage is going to keep growing and growing and growing, right? So we were the last segment of that talking, the scripted speech that was given out. And they're saying that we're going to come with a historic Canada disability benefit that's going to be, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be lifting people out of legislative poverty. And this was going to be a top-up, right? A top-up to the existing, originally a top-up to the existing original provincial disability supports for persons with disabilities. And then that magic word started changing over time. The federal government called a snap election. Snap election. Why? Because they didn't want to deal with things. Nothing to see here. So Bill C-35, once upon a time, was there. It then got changed until Bill C-22. Start from scratch. Well, the minister at the time, she wanted to make this very innovative, program to help lift people out of legislative poverty. Over 1 million people. Then the narrative started changing down to hundreds of thousands. And it was going to be no less than $2,000, like kind of like CERB, right? And initially, and then it went down to $200 per household, and then the DTC was going to be the catch in there. So how things changed from time where everyone was going to be helped, and then they watered it down. So here we are.
Supposedly it may come around July of this year, supposedly.
Up to $200, but it's only going to go to a small percentage amount of population, if they can even get it, because you still have to, right now, as the regulation stands, and the federal government can do the right thing and actually commit to what you originally promised, that everyone was going to be helped, not just a small portion of the population. Ministers have advocated, and they actually got commitment that it was going to be to everyone without a DTC requirement, applying to see if you're still disabled to meet that requirement for all these things. Just
and I've said before, like I have the DTC, so I'm not worried about that part. But I tell you, I am worried about still qualifying for it because I've told you this. I already get a child tax benefit. So I'm wondering if the child tax benefit is going to put me over the top. And they're going to say, well, because you get the child tax benefit, Neil, sorry, you don't qualify for the CDB anymore. Yeah,
that is a concern that I'm hearing too. And all these big question marks and red flags. And the government knows the right thing to do. It's just I don't think the appetite is there for the government, from provincial or federal, to actually communicate to do the right thing and get people out of legislative poverty. The pandemic should have been a learning lesson. It really should have been. It opened up all the inequalities across our nation, our beautiful country of Canada. It opened up all the problems. You've had 5 years to get this right, and now we're going to go into a deep recession. We're already in a recession. Technically, we've been in a recession for decades. PWD across Canada, we've been in a recession for decades. It's just got worse. It's been exacerbated to a point where people are now are either homeless or they're becoming homeless. They're on the edge of becoming homeless. living in precarious housing, very long waiting list to get into subsidized housing, if you can even get in there. And even then, there are people with disabilities and low income seniors who don't want that kind of housing. Like they don't want to live in, like having to move from where they live now to some kind of other housing just so they can get cheaper rent. They just want to live where they're living.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be well taken care of. I mean, why should we not be taking care of our brothers and sisters and our allies across Canada, who maybe they haven't been diagnosed with a disability and they don't even know it. And when they do, they find out, I didn't realize the system is this way. I didn't realize that. It's a little bit too little too late, because once they get on the system, that's it. Like they say, oh, how do I get by? Empty your pockets. Empty. How much money do you have? How many do you have?
That's crazy to me.
Times?
They still do that. Yeah.
But there is an announcement I do want to make that I did come across, that in British Columbia, there is a clothing allowance for persons with disabilities. So people that are not well aware of this, the minister had basically indicated that there is a program that's available. You can apply for it right at the office. If you have I guess a portal system that you can go on to, you can actually go on there. You can phone them. You can go down to the office and directly and apply for $100 clothing allowance once a year. There's also a food supplement that you can get too, apparently.
But see,
the government doesn't make this.
But see that's what bugs me, Brent, is that there's all these little pockets of money that you have to source out, and it's like we've said before, you get some people with disabilities get a rent subsidy and some don't. I mean, pitting, like you've always said, pitting disabled against disabled. I mean, why not have a fair system where you have the extra bits of money freely available to everyone, or have the rent subsidies available to everyone? That would be a fair system. I mean,
it would be very fair, because market rents, they don't come down. I mean, on a personal level, like I'm battling with the management company I live in right now. I mean, I have nasty tenants. Like they're really, really nasty people. I'm surprised it's nice and quiet today doing the podcast, but normally they thump around really loud, and it has echoed onto the podcast. I know we heard it the one day a few times, but it's quiet. And sometimes, like, your train of thought when you are trying to say something and compose what you want to say, and you get thumping above you, and it shakes the whole couch. Like literally the whole floor. It's so hollow in this place. And so the problem is there's no buffer between the flooring. Some buildings are just built that way. It's very unfortunate. So we were offered a solution. And of course, then that language quickly changed, where we agreed. We said, okay. So the solution was, let's compromise. It's coming to something that's going to be workable for the company and workable for you as tenants. Okay. I said, okay, are we in agreement? So why they want to do that is because they don't want to deal with the problem, right? The problem is the problem. And so we're going to remove the people that are subjected to the problem to another unit in the same building and pay higher rent, or move to another building and pay higher rent, but because the landlord doesn't want to take a loss. Well, I'm sorry, that same unit is still vacant, and now we're on the last day of the month of January. That unit's been vacant since November 1st, and they took an $80 loss on the rent. They won't come down in price. Meanwhile, it's been vacant. So again, if PWD, if we were given a basic amount just for rent, like an amount to cover market rent, but also hold those corporate landlords. I mean, I've said this before. You have to hold the corporate landlords to account of saying, okay, like they got to pay their mortgage. They're in business to make some money. I get it. I mean, but how much money is money, right? I mean, how much greed is greed? Is it property taxes that are too much? Okay, well then work with the cities, lower down the property taxes. So now the corporate landlords are saying, well, if it's the taxes I'm paying too much on, well, we'll work with them, but make it profitable for them, but also still sustainable for the tenant, so they can pay market rent. I mean, I look back and, in 2014, 2015, the rents were still reachable for persons with disabilities in BC. Back then, the shelter around amount was still 375, a 375 guy. Yeah, that was in 2015. I look back and there was a 2-bedroom apartment for $800. $800. So 375, that still wasn't enough, quite enough to basically pay for one room. So you'd have to
but it was within shooting distance, right?
it was still within shooting distance. So okay,
Yeah.
so again, that's why I say to get rid of that shelter amount, because it really, like, you got your whole check. You're gonna get your check and you gotta pay your rent, because if you don't pay it, you're out the door anyway.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say get rid of the 375, the shelter name, because it means nothing. I think that 375, that shelter was put in once upon a time for SROs once upon a time. It's ancient. That's 2025. Let's go forward. Let's change the system better. So anyway, my point is that you would just top it up with $25, right? Okay, so you give it to your roommate, then gives this. Your roommate pays that. Boom, your landlord's now happy. You paid your rent on time. Okay, you get a rent increase. Well, when you get a rent increase, you need to get increased by the government to top up at least that plus amount with inflation going up. What's happening here is that the government is skipping a year, and then the next year they'll give $50.
And
well,
not really accounting for inflation.
they're not accounting for that, not accounting for inflation. So now you still have to pay your corporate landlord. And so I look at it as, like, last year, for instance, when they didn't do that, cost of living went up. Where do you cut back? And so when I look at the recession looming here, like for the technical recession of the tariffs, it's going to put Canada and BC and all the provinces into a very, very bad state.
Well, I just want to stop you. I just want to stop you there, Brent, because I mean, one of the reasons why we started with the whole fentanyl thing and the drug issue thing, and the crime thing with London drugs. I mean, it's all related, right? And I just wanted to say that. I mean, this is going to kind of come across as, I don't know, maybe a throwaway comment or something, but I don't mean it to be. Like, it seems to me that governments love to kind of put PWD in this big pile, like this big discard pile of what do I want to call it, like crime, poverty, and drugs, and just like put the PWD in as part of that problem. I mean, PWD have nothing to do, like almost nothing to do with anything to do with the drug problem, nothing to do with the crime problem, nothing to do with anything, and yet somehow we get stigmatized. We get thrown into this poverty problem. We get thrown into the crime problem. We get thrown into the drug problem. There's like, well, there's all these drug problems. There's all these crime problems, and you know what? The PWD is to blame for it. You know, almost. I know. I'm sounding sensationalism a little bit, but
no. I think about that.
It almost comes across like that, right? It's like all this drug problem, all this crime problem. It's all PWD's fault. So we can't support them because it's all their fault. You know.
Well, that's exactly what one of my neighbors was discussing with me yesterday. Was saying that. It's always the blame game. It's PWD's fault because it's how they're not putting their energy into society. They have to, they have to have a job in order to say that's who they are. I go, what?
We're all doing, according to David Eby and company, and maybe Doug Ford, everybody in. That's disabled and in wheelchairs, we're all going downtown and we're all breaking the windows of London drugs, and we're all getting high on drugs. We're all getting high on drugs and overdosing on fentanyl and smashing windows and stealing stuff from London drugs and causing all this issue and doing assaults with deadly weapons. Like it's all disability's fault, right? It's all our fault. Right? It has nothing to do with the fact that, again, that David Eby legalized drugs. It has nothing to do with the fact that David Eby's on board with this whole catch and release crap that's been going on for God knows how long. it's not his fault. It's all falling on PWD. We're all part of the poverty problem. We're all part of the crime problem. We're all part of the drug problem. We're just all in the same freaking discard pile.
And I think that's another reason too why the government has excuses of why not to raise the rates up to a livable amount, because they figure that PWD are going to go out there and spend all the money on drugs and
We're the ones in our wheelchairs and crutches that are going down and smashing windows of London drugs.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Like,
the government knows who's creating the problems. And you deal with the problems, but take care of your citizens. We are citizens of Canada. We should be able to go from any province to any province, right? And it kind of gets to the point about the tariffs. Now, a lot of provinces have had their own tariffs within each province. Why? That's like saying, well, you've got to pay in order to have our goods. You pay to have our goods. It's like saying, well, PWD, you can't go to another province. Well, I mean, you can, but you have to apply to see if you're disabled in another province. It's the same thing. They need to get rid of all that. It's all red tape bullshit.
Well,
right?
You know what I wanted to do, Brent, is I wanted to end the show, I should say, with a bit of show and tell. You remember the show and tell in kindergarten in grade 1 and grade 2, the show and tell? Yeah. We have a show and tell, a couple parts of a video from the Alberta Premier. And I wanted to show it because it's in such stark contrast again, like all these premiers and even a lot of the businesses across Canada are saying, yes, we have to fight it. We have to fight it, tariffs with tariffs. And you have this one sole premier in Alberta that is kind of, bucking the trend, shall we say, Danielle Smith. She's the only one that seems to be talking common sense of about how to handle this whole tariff war. So I wanted you to play a couple of those clips. And we'll kind of end the show on that, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to try to put it on the screen, but if it doesn't, it's not visible enough, I'll just put the audio so that our listeners can definitely hear the audio. And then when it's ready to end on that one part, Neil, either I will watch for it or listen for it. Or Neil will give me the cue, and then I'll go on to the next clip. Yeah,
there's two clips. There's two clips. Yeah. There's the beginning of the interview, and then right towards the end, she talks about fentanyl. Because again, there's a lot of the premiers are saying, well, it's not our issue. I don't know what the president of the United States is talking about. It's not our issue. And again, you'll hear Danielle Smith has got a completely different take on it.
Yeah, and right before I play the clips, stay tuned to the next show after today. Today's the 31st of January. The next show will be on Monday, and that will be on the 3rd. I will be giving a nice, good overview of kind of a pre-trip that is going to be happening on the next day. Yeah. So stay tuned for that one.
Brent Frayne goes to Ottawa.
Yes. No less than poverty level financial support. Going to be going Sonia and myself. With
Sonia too, I should say.
Sonia and myself, we're going to be going with Jeff with the Canada. That's to Ottawa. Sorry, and tongue twister there, but it is no less than poverty level financial support, right? Disability Action of Canada is what I meant to say, and that is a slogan that we're going to be going there. I'm saying, where is Justin Trudeau? Where are you? Like, where are you? We're going to be there, but where are you? So stay tuned to next episode, and we'll be diving into that one.
Yeah. So let's go back to the audio clip.
Sure.
Again, this is Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta.
Yeah.
And her take is wildly different than all the other premiers in Canada, and I think she's the only one that's actually talking sense. I mean, that's my opinion, but I mean, you listen to her speak, and it's like it's right on the nose as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, play the clips, Brent.
25th, President Trump publicly warned that he would impose tariffs on Canada unless we take action on critical border issues such as cracking down on fentanyl other illegal drugs and illegal immigration. And I've been clear from the beginning that we must take President Trump's statements on border security seriously and to take action immediately, rather than focusing on inflaming the issue with rhetoric around retaliation. My fellow premiers have been asking for serious action on these issues as well. Today, U.S. President Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary nominee, Howard Lutnick, stated during his confirmation hearing that, quote, "If we are your biggest trading partner, show us the respect, shut your border. This is a separate tariff to create action from Mexico and action from Canada. As far as I know, they are acting swiftly, and if they execute it, there will be no tariff. And if they don't, then there will be." Let me say it again. The one thing that we can do this week, in just the next couple of days, to have the best chance to avoid tariffs is to show clear and unequivocal action to secure the border. This should start with the appointment of a Canadian border czar to work with the new American border czar to jointly crack down hard on fentanyl and illegal migrants. Is this likely to end the threat of tariffs entirely? I don't think so. I think there'll be other things that we will need to work on, and we will do so. But I am convinced, after speaking with dozens of elected U.S. representatives, administration officials, and the president himself, that this is the most important first step. Today, I reiterated this to the premiers, Minister LeBlanc, Minister Wilkinson, and Prime Minister Trudeau, and I hope it is acted on by the end of this week before February 1st. That is why why we also sent a Fox News crew to the Coots border today to showcase the work Alberta has been doing to secure our border, including the establishment of a new interdiction patrol team within the Alberta Sheriffs to combat drug smuggling, gun trafficking, and other illegal activities along Alberta's 298-kilometer international boundary with the United States. This interdiction team will be supported by 51 uniformed officers equipped with carbine rifles, weapons for tactical operations, 10 support staff, including dispatchers and analysts, 4 drug patrol dogs, 10 cold weather surveillance drones capable of operating in high winds with dedicated pilots, 4 narcotics analyzers to test for illicit drugs. Additionally, Alberta's government will create a 2-kilometer deep critical border zone deemed critical infrastructure, allowing sheriffs to arrest individuals attempting to cross the border illegally or traffic drugs or weapons without the need for a warrant. I want to thank the federal government for accepting Alberta's request to send a Black Hawk helicopter to the border today, further demonstrating the actions we are taking collectively to secure the border. We want to ensure that the American people, along with their president and elected representatives, know that action is being taken on this issue. And we are hopeful that these Fox News appearances display our province's and our nation's commitment.
Yeah, that's it, Brent. Now, doesn't that sound like a whole bunch of common sense approach to everything? Yeah. I mean, you contrast that with the puffed out chest of David Eby and the puffed out chest of Doug Ford, and it's just a night and day difference, right?
Oh yeah.
I was going to make a quip. I'm always about making quips about David Eby, right? But remember when we had that last election and you had that debate. And you had David Eby and you had John Rustad sharing the stage, with Sonia Furstenau, and they're all standing up there, and I mean everybody wants to get in the zinger, right? And so David Eby's zinger, and it was kind of funny. I'll give him that. It was kind of funny, but because he turned to John Rustad and he said, I don't trust John Rustad to organize my Thanksgiving dinner party. And it was kind of funny, but at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, like, he should be pointing the finger directly at himself because I don't, it was a funny ha like jab or attempt at jab. But I mean, his finger should be pointing to himself. Like, I don't trust David Eby to burn toast. Like, I mean, like let alone run a dinner party. I don't trust David Eby to burn toast at this point, So Yeah.
And I mean, it's just so ironic that that different premiers have different perspectives on how they're going to solve these tariffs. I think grow in Canada, grow everything in Canada and produce things in Canada. And I think rather than relying on the USA of getting everything imported up, unless they get rid of these tariffs altogether, just get rid of tariffs altogether, then we have no problem. But the tariffs are going to keep being an ongoing problem every time that they get a new president in, or they're going to be putting more tariffs. Yeah. Well, what happens there? It actually makes the cost of everything keep going up and up. Once the costs go up, they don't come down. I remember I always talk about, way back in the 1980s. I mean, mid 80s. I mean, even late 80s. But you could go and buy a bottle of pop, a bag of chips, and a chocolate bar. No tax, everyone. There was no tax. Yeah. Bottle deposit or can deposit, 5 cents. $1.05. And yes, we had dollar bills back then. Dollar bills, imagine. A Canadian dollar bill. A $2 bill.
I wish I kept a couple of mine.
Me too. I wish I did.
Would have been worth a fortune.
You just go to the store and say, here's a dollar, $1.05. They're like, no, keep the 5 cents. Yeah. Just bring back that bottle when you're done, or the can. I always like the bottle because if I'm traveling around, I can just put the cap back on, right? So, so I made a deal where I just say, okay, here's a dollar bill. Now you can't even get one of those items for $1.
Yeah.
One.
I wanted to get back to Danielle Smith though, because right at the end of the interview, she does another, like, again, common sense, mic drop moment where right towards the end of the interview. So it's, I think, what did I say? 39 minutes.
39.
She talks about, or she gets a question about fentanyl, and the question is like. Something to the effect of, like, is it really fair that the president of the United States is pinning all this fentanyl problem on us when we're only responsible for 1% of the problem? I mean, that's the question that's posed, and you're going to hear her response. So go ahead and play that clip as well. Sure. It's about 2 minutes. This one, it's not as long as the first one. About 2 minutes.
Here we go.
One part of it, the answer. The other part of the answer, though, if you read Robert Lighthizer book, as you can imagine, I've been reading a lot of books to try to understand this administration. But if you read Lighthizer's book, there is a whole chapter on the frustration that the Americans have about value-added national sales taxes.
Is that? I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's correct. It's 39 minutes, Brent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, a little bit further.
Yeah, go to just 39 minutes exactly, or just a little bit before, but right at 39 minutes exactly, it's got the other clip there.
Hey, me bad. I'm sorry about that, folks.
Well, I mean, it's called the Brent technology, which we all know and love.
Well, I was actually trying to fast forward the video clip here, and actually, for some reason, it was cooperating, and then it just didn't.
Oh, they decided to scrub back again.
Yeah. And actually, because it was right there, actually, I had it queued up, and then it, for some reason.
Okay.
I was doing it right. Yay. Okay, I think I got it all set right.
It doesn't have to be right on the nose, but somewhere close to 39 minutes is good.
As soon as this early part of the year, and then we can continue to work on how we expand the alignment so that we can get out to the original vision of getting it all the way down to Seton, as well as all the way up to 160th. I think we now have a little bit more of a realistic view about what that total project will cost. If we look at the numbers for this part of the
still
line,
not quite there, but I think it's coming close, isn't it?
Okay, hang on.
Cost of the project.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, I don't know how close we are to that, but I think we're getting there.
Yes, okay, I found it. I think I found it.
Okay.
Okay.
On a different topic.
There we go. I think this
Can you tell me what is the status right now of discussions with the Pathway Alliance and the province of Alberta and the federal government on getting a deal done on the carbon capture project? And are you confident that a deal can be done before a federal election comes in?
Is it after this?
Yeah.
Well, I was talking about that today with Energy Minister Jonathan.
Just bear with us then, folks.
We've put on the table, of course.
Just bear with me here.
Yeah, because it's an important clip. I just wanted to make sure we play it because it's only 2 minutes, but it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that there is a lot of different moving elements.
You may I have it all queued up properly here. That was my
maybe what I'll blame myself, Brent, because maybe what I should have done is I should have tried to find a second clip with her just saying that. But it's my bad too. I should have organized it a bit better myself.
Especially now that
hang on.
so quickly
It's just the for some reason the video it kind of jumps forward and like it's
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. Let's see if I can get it to. Okay, hang on. 35, 30. Okay, it's in the 3,800 mark here. So.
Okay, so
okay.
We're very close here now. Yeah.
I'll just play it here.
Tim with CTV. A bit of a two-pronged question today about the Premier's meeting. First of all, do you feel like everyone's on the same page right now? I know that maybe wasn't the case 10 or so days ago. And second, did you hear about the package that's being proposed if these tariffs do get imposed? And what do you think of the package?
I don't have anything to say about the package because there is no package until there's tariffs, and there are no tariffs. And I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that there are no tariffs. That's where I think everybody should be focused. It's where I've been focused. And we've got 2 more days before we know what it looks like on February 1st, at which point we will probably reconvene as a group and then make some decisions at that time.
My second question, when all this tariff talk started, there was a really big effort on your part to talk to Trump, or appeal to Trump rather, about trade deficits and maybe just set the record straight a little bit. Have you tried to do the same thing when it comes to the border? Because anyone can see the stats here that most of the fentanyl comes in through Mexico, not Canada, and the same with illegal migrants. So have you tried to appeal to him at all on that front and just say, Canada's not the problem here? The majority of the problems in the States come from Mexico.
If you've watched anything that I've said over the last 2 years, you'll know that I think that illegal drugs killing our people is a problem. The drugs are coming in from somewhere, and the components are coming in from somewhere. It appears that much is coming in from Mexico, some of it is coming in from China, and it's killing our people. And so this is why we have been appealing to the federal government to stop their catch and release approach so that we can keep these bad guys behind bars. And it's why we've been shoring up our sheriffs. Not only do we have this interdiction team on the border, but we have as well a fugitive apprehension team. We've got our surveillance team, and we've got SCAN, which closes down drug houses. So we have taken this very seriously for the last 2 years. And I hope that the federal government takes it as seriously as we do. That being said, we've also dealt with it from the demand side. You cut off the supply by going after the dealers, but you cut off the demand by getting people into recovery. And you've probably seen the stats that we reduced our opioid deaths 38% year over year. So whether it's our virtual opioid dependency program, whether it's our treatment that we do in our provincial incarceration units, or whether it's our recovery-oriented system of care and our recovery communities, whatever we're doing is working, because it's an outlier from the rest of the country. So I would say that I'm not downplaying this at all. I think it is serious, and it's good for America, and it's good for us to get these bad guys and to stop them from killing our people.
And that's
Final
it.
question today.
That's it, Brent.
Yeah.
Now, I just wanted to give the mic drop moment to the Premier of Alberta there, and basically end the show on that, more or less, because we do have to punch out anyway. But I just thought it was a really important clip to show, and again, she's basically on an island by herself, the only one speaking common sense in my opinion, in my humble opinion. And I just wish there would be more premiers, that we're acting more like her, because this whole puffing out your chest like David Eby and Doug Ford is doing is it's not working.
Yeah, I'm glad she just said how it was, and her perspective of her observation of what is going on. And like fentanyl it is coming up, it's getting funneling, like she's right, it's getting funneling from China over to Mexico and then up, and it's then being brought up through all the ports. It's coming up through all those container ships, and they come to the Port of Vancouver in Delta. They come through, only 1% is getting checked, and guess where they all come? So they're getting funneled all the way up, right? And then they get processed and then they get shipped back down again. It's got to stop. Like this nonsense. We got to be taking care of our citizens. We got to be taking care properly. We got to be taking care of our senior citizens, people with disabilities in Canada. We are citizens. Start respecting the people's dignity, like, and give people the respect, like seniors, because like we are going to get there one day. Are we all taken care of by pensions, like union pensions and everything else? I mean, come on, like we all should be all treated fairly. Take care of your brothers, your sisters, your mothers, your fathers, your grandparents, your allies around you. I mean, we're all Canadians. We should all be taking care of each other. Enjoy the wealth, like share the wealth.
Maybe we can all do smashing windows, and then we'll get catch and release treatment. But actually, I just wanted to end the show on Bertie's comment. She says, "Authentic Brent technology moment right there. Don't go fixing what isn't broken."
Well,
with the cell phone.
Well, what happened is that the video, it kept on, it got stuck, it wouldn't go further, so then I had to close it out, and I figured it was on the right spot, and it kept on going. Normally I have it queued up and really good with technology, but that was it was all getting all wonky.
Anyway, we do have to punch out Brent.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today.
It was a good show.
Yeah, stay tuned to our next episode.
Yeah,
one of Brent's bloopers there. Everyone.
Bye everyone.